Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Andrew Toh, and in this channel, I'm just going to do a quick Q&A for some of the questions that I've received from some lovely people who have watched my videos. So I've gathered these questions and I put it onto my Notion page, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to read it off my screen. So the first question that I got is from Arnold from PTYA. Just wondering, what's the reason you started a channel and what are some personal projects, if any, that you're working on right now? Well, so actually before I started my channel, I just want to answer this question in twofold. Before I started off my channel, I was working on a podcast called The Careers of Millennials, and you can find it in some of the videos in my YouTube channel. And I was also building a website on and basically a blog. But right now, I think the main personal project that I'm working on is this YouTube channel. I also do some voiceover gigs on Fiverr, where I just basically grab a mic and a client just sends in a script with some words and I just voice it over. And that one, it's more of like a mix of passion and money. So it does make some decent money that I've made over the past few months. Actually, it's gotten better. It started off slowly, and then I started to get more and more gigs per month. Now I think average I'm getting like 1 gig per week, so in 1 month I do something like 4. Going back to the reason why I started the podcast, actually I started my channel to upload the podcast that I've done. So I watched some YouTube channels that had some video podcasts. The notable one is the Impact Theory by Tom Bilyeu, and there are also some local podcasts in Singapore as well with a video podcast format, and I was inspired to do something like that. That's why I started my YouTube channel, to upload these videos on there. And subsequently, I wanted to do more short form videos, which is like what I'm doing right now. And so this is where my YouTube channel is going. Okay, second question is Zoe from LinkedIn. What are your dreams and goals in life? Well, this is a tough one. I think at least for the short term, this year, my goal is to put out 1 video a week on YouTube. I've set out a commitment to do that. At least in this year or next year, I also plan to move out as well. So one of the immediate dreams that is on my mind right now is to think of, I'm thinking of this dream home that I'm eyeing somewhere in Sengkang area. My wife works in Sengkang and she works as a nurse there. So I think it will be a dream to have this open concept kitchen in a very nice HDB that is near where she works, so that she doesn't need to commute so far. And I actually wanted to do some other videos like cooking and food, because I'm quite into it as well. So I think it would be a dream to have that kind of interior design built into a HDB and have and be able to make videos all day long. So that I think is one of the more realistic dreams that I can think of right now. All right. So next question is from Genga from PTYA. Do you find corporate life in Singapore different from the Western world? And also, what people who are not in corporate life can learn from someone who is in it to improve their lives? Well, this is kind of a difficult question because I don't exactly know what corporate life is like in the Western world. I can only imagine what is it like just after watching some movies, and also reading some career-related articles online from Harvard Business Reviews or or from Forbes or stuff like that. I think that in Asia we have our own Asian cultures, the way we work, the way we think and manage projects. One book that I think helps to answer this question is The Culture Map by Erin Meyer. So I think this book helps to answer that question into what the corporate life is like between Singapore versus the Western world. And so I think that if we want to imagine what the differences are, we can read this book to find out. For example, in Asia, we are probably we are more conservative with our criticisms, whereas in the Western world, I could imagine that people will just call up people all the time, and I think it's probably more aggressive in that. Whereas I think in Asia, it tends to be more quiet, in a sense that people don't necessarily criticize each other openly, but rather they do it in private. So yeah, I think that's one of the differences I can think of right now. And then the next part of the question, which is what people can learn. what people who are not in the corporate world can learn from those who are in the corporate world. Well, first of all, I just want to say that this question is really interesting because I didn't know that people who are outside of the corporate world would be interested in people who are in the corporate world, because typically when we think about corporate world, it's this dry, boring topics. But I think one thing that we can really learn is how to work with people, how to manage teams, how to manage projects, because in the corporate world, things don't get done by yourself. Unlike in the arts or in some other non-corporate part of the world, where it tends to be like a one-man band or in a small team. Whereas in the corporate world, you got to learn how to work with many people, because as you can imagine, corporates are huge. You have departments, you have lots of people to deal with. So learning how to deal with and work together with people, I think is probably the key skill that you get to learn from corporate people. And so another thing I'd like to mention is that what I mean by managing projects is that in the corporate world, we face tons of challenges. I mean, you can talk about projects, you can talk about people, you can talk about platforms, IT platforms, whatever. These things are so challenging that I think it's if you talk to a very well seasoned corporate veteran, he or she will be able to give you the kind of vibe that they can just deal with anything. They can probably negotiate with anyone just so that they can get what they want, or to basically get things done. I think that's one thing that people outside of the corporate world can really learn, which is really this core negotiating skills. And those negotiating skills, I imagine, were built up over time after working through all those difficult conversations, difficult projects that have been past the deadline, and we're just finding remedies and solutions to problems, or talking to people at the same time. So yeah, and I think that will be life-changing, that will improve your lives as well, because eventually at some point in time we will need to work with difficult people or difficult projects. So having that resilience and having that ability to negotiate and to talk to people would go a long way to improve our lives. Okay, so that's a little bit of a corporate rant. The next question is, what do you think is the most important skill to develop to stay relevant in the future of work? This is from Lin from Telegram, or also from PTYA. I think the most important skill we can think of right now in the context of the future of work is emotional intelligence. I don't know what to call that as a skill, but basically the ability to connect with people, to talk to people and feel them, understand their points, and convince them to join your cause or to even find a solution together. I think that is the most valuable skill to learn, because number one, it takes a long time to do it. I acknowledge it. I don't have the best emotional intelligence in the world. When I first started out working, I was called up by my manager several times that I have absolutely almost zero EQ, because I was like blank in the face all the time. But there are some reasons why that happened, and I'll probably do a video sometime about that behavior. But I think when we think about the future of work, we think about robotics, we think about automation, changing the job landscape. Suddenly we don't have jobs anymore on the front side, or those labor-intensive jobs have been transformed into jobs that you need to use technology and stuff like that. I wouldn't be afraid of the future. In fact, I would embrace the future if I have the skill of being able to connect with people, because I believe that no matter what happens in the future, we will always still need to work with people and connect with people. So whatever the medium is, whether it's through Zoom calls that we're doing right now, or whether it's meeting face-to-face, or which we don't do so often anymore nowadays, or whether it's working together with someone, managing remote teams. I think that's probably the second most important skill to learn. I think to top it all off is still the ability to connect with people and to learn what people want and to work together in a team. Basically and all these things come with emotional intelligence. So I think that's the skill that I think would be so important, and I'm fully vested, and I really want to lean into it as well. And also one more question from Lynn from PTYA or Telegram is, what is the one thing that you think most other job seekers miss that would help them land their dream job? I think the one thing that job seekers miss when they are pursuing their dream jobs is mentioned in one of my earlier videos, which is a value validation project. A value validation project, in a nutshell, is basically providing a piece of work of sample or some kind of proposal that validates the kind of value you can bring to the job. I think that most job seekers, including myself, were held back from applying for our dream job, possibly because we think that we're not good enough, or we think that we don't have the right qualifications, don't have the right experience, blah blah blah. But I think that it's still possible, and I've seen evidences of people who have successfully gotten so through this method to apply for our dream jobs. If we were to put in the hard work and time and effort to put up some kind of value validation project which communicates the kind of value we can bring despite whatever experiences we have. I think that most job seekers basically just send in their resumes or put out their LinkedIn profile out there, contacting recruiters through LinkedIn and all that. And on LinkedIn, actually, it's not bad as well, because you put up articles out there, you put out your work samples out there about things that you write about. But to a greater extent, if we can send in a proposal at the same time when we submit our applications to our dream jobs, I think that one piece of work can change our lives, because it will give us an extra edge to land our dream jobs. So next question is Anne from PTYA, which is, how's banking in Singapore? Well, I always tell people that Singapore is a finance-driven economy. About 1/3 of the economy is banking and finance. So if we think about banking in Singapore, there are basically three main banks here in Singapore. There's DBS, OCBC, and UOB. These are the retail banks. And so banking in Singapore, I think, is where people get most of their jobs, because as a bank, you have huge operations that hires across almost any role that we can think of, right? Right from operations to sales to the back office to the middle office to the IT department. It's where you can get a good job as well, because the work-life balance is pretty good as well. And things are strictly regulated here as well, because Singapore is also known to be one of the leading financial hubs in Asia. So being able to work in banking in Singapore is actually quite a privilege. But at the same time, there are strict rules to follow. Everything is like step by step. Everything has to be documented for compliance, for audit, for regulatory reasons. So there's a lot of documentation involved. And because banking is huge, you get to meet a lot of people. So I would say that life in banking in Singapore is pretty good. So thanks again for watching this video of my Q&A. I hope it has been helpful. I'm also releasing some new videos over the next few weeks, so if you'd like to be the first to be notified, feel free to click the subscribe button below, and I look forward to see you in my next video.